What's up, y'all? You're now listening to the What Now podcast. I'm Dr. Spencer Dupre, owner of Empower Chiropractic.
And I am Dr. Zach Thompson, owner of Within Chiropractic. The purpose of this podcast is to document and share the experiences of two young business owners as we open our own brick and mortar chiropractic practices. Join along as we discuss all of our wins, our losses, insights, and the many, many lessons we learned.
As a disclaimer, none of this is ever intended to be medical, legal, or financial advice. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the What Now podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dr. Spencer Dupre with Empower Chiropractic in Argyle, Texas, joined by my buddy, Dr. Zach Thompson within Chiropractic in Colleyville. And we also have a really awesome special guest today, newly dubbed Dr. Colton O'Brien, a recent graduate, one of our homies. Yep. In his startup What Now phase. We're super excited that you're on the podcast, Colt. And we're excited for everyone to hear what you have to share, man. So, Zach, tell everybody what we're getting into today.
Yeah, so I'll second what Spencer said. Super excited to have Dr. Colton O'Brien on the podcast. This is exactly what we do. You know, it's what now? What should we be focusing on, or what have we done in the past that we should learn from? And today, Spencer and I, are big networkers. For those that aren't sure or familiar with the word networking is going out to B&Is or chamber events or just a local happy hour and connecting with other local professionals or people in the community and handing out your business card, right? Or that's what some people think networking is. So today we're going to talk about how we have been successful in networking. Me personally, I think I calculated the other day, 80% of my new patients have come from networking, not social media, which is surprising in today's day and age. But Colton told us that very recently, he went to his first B&I, which stands for Business Networking International. It's a very, very structural group. They meet weekly. So, Colton, let's first introduce yourself. Where are you at in the process? And then tell us a bit about your experience in your new B&I.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? Like they said, I'm Dr. Colton O'Brien. And thanks for having me on. I've been listening to this podcast every week. Two of my good friends and mentors. So, it's a great show, definitely learning a lot. But where I'm at in the process right now is about a month from opening. I graduated a little over a month ago, and just trying to get back end work figured out, getting the business established, the legal things, business account, all that stuff. And then, like they said, now I'm starting to turn my focus into okay, how am I going to bring patients in and how am I going to establish myself in the community? So last week, I went to my first B&I meeting, which was an awesome opportunity just to start to expose myself to the community and just meet people in that community.
What was your experience like in that B&I? Give us your 60-second commercial. No, I'm kidding. What did you feel? Was it uncomfortable? Was it different? Do you feel like school prepared you at all for that?
No, I don't feel like school prepared me well for that, but life definitely prepared me for it. I pride myself on being a person that goes out and tries to seek and create relationships with people. So I walked in, and first things first, they had a visitor pass for me, and then I didn't have to do a lot of work. Everyone kind of swarmed me. It was super welcoming. It reminded me of being that new person at church, or my first day whenever I stepped onto Parker, and everyone was just super loving and super welcoming. So that dropped the stress that I had going into it. And then once it was time to sit down, they said we had to give our 60-second commercial. And I knew that because I asked Zach what to be prepared for. And I stood up, and it was good. It was a good thing that I'm doing this now, because it was just not what I prepared to say. It was kind of a moment, and I pieced my way through it, but it was a little choppy, but I think I got the point across. And now I've been practicing every day my 60-second commercial, because I realize the value in communicating what we do.
That's awesome, man. That is so to a T exactly what I felt my first time. I was like, I think I had an idea that there was going to be a 60-second commercial. It's just like you said, there's people super welcoming, and then it gets to that time to go around the room, and you're like, oh wait, there's some vets, there's some dogs in here. They've done this 60-second commercial more than once. They have a tagline, they got everything.
Yeah, they were
And so,
finishing with jingles and stuff, and I was like, wow, I guess I need to figure out a jingle.
yeah, that's awesome. That gave me flashbacks. I first joined a BNI back in, I think, March or April of last year, and man, it was like, I'm going to talk about chiropractic, and then you get up there and you're like, you say everything, and they're like, you still have 45 seconds, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm Zach. That's about all I got. And then you're like, okay, time to practice. What do you
It's funny
think?
how whenever
Go ahead.
say it's funny how whenever someone just asks you like, "What do?" You have no idea, right? You spend all this time in school like being like, "This is what I stake my life on. This is where I plant my flag." And someone's like, "So what do you do?" And you're like, "I have no idea."
Yeah, exactly.
I adjust the spine, correct subluxation, blah, and it's like, okay, and it's good, right? And I think what you're doing and what you said is like really potent, that you're already noticing, okay, it's good that I'm doing this now. That word was good. I don't know what happened to my tongue there, but it's good that you're doing this now, and not waiting, right? Because I think one of the biggest benefits to doing these 60-second commercials, or going to BNI or going to these networking events before you're open, is the communication you'll have in the office. That was something I've really noticed since opening, was like, wow, like I'm a lot more fluid, I'm calmer. I realize how quickly time can go by, but also how slowly. Like that 60 seconds, like our group times it. And so talking slow or talking more clearly, not getting your tongue stuck when you're trying to say words like good, just really helps when you're in the office, and brings a much calmer sense when you're with patients. So kudos to you on that. Do you have any questions, or Spence, do you have any insight to I know you've done more chamber work. What has your experience been networking?
Well, me personally, networking, I'm in a group called Master Networks. It's just like BNI, except instead of red, it's blue. And it's literally the same thing, super structured. You go around and you do we do a 30-second intro where it depends on the day. So there's like a rotating agenda in our Master Networks group. And so it's nice because, so like 1 week, like the group will like quote bond like over coffee or something. And then the next time, somebody will do like a showcase of a business where you give like an 8 to 10 minute presentation on what you do. Every time you go around the room and you say like, "Hey, I'm so-and-so, this is what I do." But I do have a question for Colton. Like, Colton, one, how did you find your BNI group, right? How do you find these groups whenever you're just starting out? And then two, what were some of like the pre-meeting jitters, right? Like, because, when you're there, everything changes, right? But it's like, what is the work? What kind of things were you doing to prepare, like for your 60-second commercial after? Does that kind of inform you what was going on?
Yeah, cool. The pregame jitters were just that, just like before a basketball game, what it is. But when you're in the moment, you're in the moment. But the night before, Liz and I were hanging out. Liz is my wife, by the way. We were hanging out, cooking dinner, watching TV, and she just like looked over at me and she's like, "What are you thinking about? Like, why are you not present right now?" I'm like, "I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say in the 60-second commercial." So that was what I felt like before. And then driving up there, I felt really good. I was confident. I was excited. It felt like I was like taking a step to really do this thing and start being a chiropractor and start getting the message out that so many people need to hear. So I was really empowered walking into that room. So that was really cool. And then, like I said, after I spoke, it was just like, oh, I could have done this better, could have done that better. But in hindsight, I was really just proud of myself that I took the step anyway. Yeah. But to speak to finding it, I just Googled BNI, and yeah, I've heard that's where you go, and so I Googled BNI. And was having trouble deciding which one. And so I called the national number, and the lady's like, "This one doesn't have a chiropractor." That's what it tells you online. It won't tell you whether your profession is in that group or not. But if you call, they have the ability to look and see if your profession is in that group, so you don't have to waste your time going if they already have that profession there. Yeah. So like they don't have a chiropractor. So I was like, yeah, let me check this one out. And it was also the largest group.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I think something, just so our listeners are familiar to, with BNI, it's unlike a chamber where there's only one professional from each service able to be there. It's like there's only one chiropractor, there's only one residential realtor, there's only one business banker, right? There's not another one. So that's why it was important for Colt to find a group that did not have a chiropractor. Yeah. So that's all. It's funny to hear too, you talking about, because I mean, I'm still doing the same thing. Like when I leave the group, I'm going back over my head, kind of like watching film. Like, okay, what did I say? How could I have said it differently? Did I use my time wisely? Oh, when I was in this conversation, in this networking moment, this person said this, and I didn't even mention how that ties into chiropractic. But yeah, it was just funny to hear you say that. It's so fun to, because when you're in these BNI, so many of these people, I mean, there's literally professional networkers. Like their job for their company is to network. So when you're around them, you're like, oh wow, like they do this well. Be like, and of course we compare ourselves, and then they would come to our office and be like, wow, you do chiropractic well. It's like, yeah, well, okay. Makes a little trade off there, but it's definitely enjoyable and funny to hear you talking about just going back over your head and yeah, being proud that you took the first step. I think that is the most important part. You're not going to be sheltered in your office when you first open. You're actually going to already have your name out there, and now those people in that BNI are excited for you to open. So that was the same thing for me.
Yeah, I think that was the coolest thing that I realized once being there is like people are looking for chiropractors, and especially being the only profession in that only chiropractor in that group, everyone was super excited. They're like, oh man, we've been waiting on a chiropractor to come, and everyone's talking about how much they love the chiropractor they used to have or things of that nature. So it just gave me a lot of confidence and helped me realize like people are looking for us. And so we just got to get out there.
Yep. So that's a good segue into, people are looking for us, right? And so Spencer and I talk a lot outside of this podcast about how to properly network, and then also how to really know who your ideal clientele is. We both did a lot of work with the Delta Sigma Chi business school, and you read Book Yourself Solid by Michael Port. So knowing and understanding who your ideal clientele is, but also how to best communicate who you're looking for. So Spence, how have you navigated? I'm sure when you first started, it wasn't the best, talking about who your ideal clientele is, but how have you really refined that so that it's super particular in what the people you want to serve, and so that those people in that group know who to look for?
Yeah, so I started networking. I was not good at it, as much of a social butterfly as I thought that I was. I thought I was going to flap my little wings around and everyone was going to love me, and I really just kind of flailed like a fish, is what kind of felt like, and then going through the Pediatric Experience Startup book, Tony Ebel was just saying like, hey man, when you're networking, you have to shift the conversation to from like, hey, I'm a chiropractor, to I'm a pediatric chiropractor, right? Because my ideal clientele, I was going through Delta Sigma Chi business school. I was always like, I don't think ideal clientele really exists. Like I'll serve anyone and everyone. And then like I heard, like when you try to sell to everyone, you really sell to no one. And when you try to serve everyone, like you really serve no one, because your grasp is too broad, right? Like you have too big of holes in your net. And so if you have no filter, then like you cannot have any potency, right? Like you can't have any draw. You won't catch anything. And so, because I wasn't getting any leads, I wasn't making any connections, because everybody just assumes that they know what chiropractic is. And then I just started saying like, hey, I'm Dr. Spencer. I'm a pediatric chiropractor. Dude, and people like that networking event, people lined up to talk to me just because they're like, what do you mean pediatric chiropractor? And like, that's when you get them. And, yeah. And so then I just said, hey, I'm Dr. Spencer Dupre. I'm a pediatric chiropractor, and we serve mom, kids, and families, but we have a special place in our heart, especially for kids with developmental disorders. And that's or I usually say developmental challenges, but that's what we say, right? Like, so that already lets people know, like, I serve moms, but both like expecting and hopeful, and we serve kids, and especially kids with developmental challenges.
And I think what's so important for our listeners is how clear that was. There's no extra words. There's no fluff. There's no, like, he's not trying to be the smartest person in the room. It's no, I see moms, kids, and a special place in my heart for kids with neurodevelopmental issues, right? And that he can say that over and over again, and it's the same thing. It's repeatable, it's reproducible. So amen to you, Spence. That's awesome.
Thanks.
And how have you shifted? Because right, there's the commercial, and then there's the networking aspect.
Yeah.
How have you shifted those conversations to really educate? I don't really like that word, but to kind of enlighten your style here.
Well, with chiropractic, I've always, right, the less you talk, the more you hear. And same thing with chiropractic, like the softer your approach, or the less that you're doing, the more that you can bring forward in chiropractic, right? And so the first thing I always open up with is just asking whoever I'm sitting in front of, like, oh, like, so I always say, like, yeah, so this is your name and you do that. And I'm like, oh, so tell me about that. And like, that's how I always start. And it just gets them talking about them. And I just very actively listen and just like, yes, like nodding my head, and really actually trying to learn about what they're doing. Because if you can learn about what they're doing, you get an insight into what their life is like. And then therefore you can meet their challenges and their problems that life is going to present them to. Mm-hmm. Right. And so if you're so ready just to like fire off your chiropractic spiel, then you're never going to actually know if you can help this person or not. Mm-hmm. So I just listen to them, ask them what they do. And I'm really good at metaphor and relating things to chiropractic. And so I just say like, and they say like, so what do you do? And I always say, well, it's a lot like, and then fill in the blank with whatever they said. And like, I just take something from what they just told me that they really understand. And I just relate it to chiropractic. Yeah. So like, you're
definitely a genius in that sense. Like I've seen you do that time and time again. I've always kind of hated you for it, or not hated, but envied you for it. So I'm just like, how do you spin it that well?
Yeah, I just say, give me anything. I'll relate it to chiropractic.
Yeah, let's go with, no, we won't do it right now, but, cool. Colton, here's a question I had. I was blessed to speak at Paula Feely's Samurai series over the weekend, and I talked about certainty and conviction coming from skill level. But I was curious, with your first time doing this 60-second commercial, looking back, how certain or how convicted do you feel you conveyed your message? He's thinking, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm thinking. How certain or how convicted did I feel that I conveyed my message? I feel really certain in my message. I mean, from the moment that I stepped on campus and really started to learn about chiropractic and the power that it holds to really set people free and help them express their ultimate potential, essentially, I was just ready to spit that to anybody and everybody. So my conviction came through, but the fluency in which I said it didn't. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Right. And I think what helps lend, at least for the three of us, right? All three of us were up 6 a.m., 2-3 times a week, training with Kairos training culture, developed our skill pretty dang high. So I think when we have the opportunity to speak directly to someone or to a group, we have a little bit of a different swagger, just because it's like if you come into my office and I get the chance to get my hands on you, like, we're going to light you up and you're going to be feeling amazing, and functioning at a much higher potential. So I think that's why Colton is able to say, like, yeah, his conviction was there. He's also, very well versed in the green books and the way in which chiropractic science, true science, works. So it's awesome to hear you already feeling that certainty. I know for me personally, I did not feel certain. I was like, I don't even know if this. I knew chiropractic works, but for whatever reason, when I look back on like my posture and my tone, it definitely sounded like I had no idea what I was even talking about. And that's, I think, what I've noticed in other networking groups, not with like a sense of judgment, but just kind of comparing side to side. Okay, like, what is this person doing that's really good, or why is this person struggling? And it's because they don't either express passion in what they're doing or what their business is about, or they don't feel very certain in that their company can deliver the results that they are talking about in that 60-second commercial. And I think that's a really big piece, is if you're getting ready for a networking group or really practice in general, whether you're going to be an associate or an owner, is feeling certain that chiropractic works. And that comes through with, multiple reps of the skill, but also I know for Colton and myself, Spencer has a funny story with his mission trip, but going on a mission trip, seeing that it works right in front of you, doing those types of things to really start to acknowledge, oh wait, like what I'm doing works. Like I don't need to be questioning myself when I'm in the big leagues, when I'm in front of these people in the group. So awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Colton.
Yeah.
So in your message and in your conviction and your certainty, I remember a couple months ago, like we had kind of talked about your tagline, right? Like you had called asking me about your tagline. And how has the journey of developing the message behind your brand been going for you, right? Because in networking, what you're ultimately doing is just representing your brand, like whatever, like Zach represents the Within Chiropractic brand, like I represent the Empower Chiropractic brand. And so like the Trinity Life brand message is ultimately like what you're going to be speaking on in these network groups. So how has the development of that message been going for you? Kind of like walk us through like where you started and like kind of where you're at now.
Yeah, most definitely. So that's what I'm super passionate about. And it's honestly been a struggle for me because I want to convey it in a way that is very simple and makes sense without just like throwing it in people's faces. So like essentially my message is like, and I know both of y'all agree with me, but like we're made in the image of God. And that's the message. And whenever our nervous system is clear of interference, we're able to like reach that potential that I talked about earlier. But as you can see with me trying to explain it right now, like how do I explain that in a very simple yet profound way? So that's been something that I'm struggling with. Like the tagline that I've come up with is "You were created perfect. Let us help you live that way." And that's what I really want people to understand is that like they're perfect in who they are. But sometimes with the stressors of life and what might be going on around us, that expression can be dampened or yeah, exactly. I guess that's my point.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for, right? Like what is the journey like to condense that message, right? How does that make you feel like when, like where are you at in that process? Like, do you feel like you're satisfied? Like, do you feel like you are in a space to like deploy that message?
No, I'm not super, I guess I'm not super confident in where I am in delivering that message quite yet. I just kind of like let it rip whatever's in my mind or on the tip of my tongue. So this is really inspiring me to sit down and get in my journal and really, really hone in on this message and how am I going to be able to communicate this effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, yep. I think that'll take time, right? Obviously getting in the journal over time, like you'll write down what you think the tagline is, but I think the best thing is putting it in the fire. I mean, that's just my personal belief. It's probably why I didn't do so well in school because I was like, I'll just figure it out on the test day. But like doing the reps in an actual like competing sense is what really matters. And so I think you'll start to learn, oh, when I say this word, it doesn't really land, but when I actually use this word, it really lands. So I think both the journal and kind of brainstorming what to say and what not to say will go a long way, but also continuing to get uncomfortable. It is really uncomfortable to be up there and try to give your 60-second commercial, especially when you're not open. I remember for me, I'm like, man, I'm really talking about all these things. No one can send me referrals because I'm not open yet. Like I'm just up here saying I'm going to be open soon, that kind of thing. But I think what is so great about BNI, and I'm not sure if Spencer, your group does this, but each member at some point in time gets to do a 10-minute presentation. And that's when you really get to let people know, like, okay, this is what I do. This is how I do it, why I do it, and allow your passion to really convey through that. And I was blessed. My group they wanted me to do it really early. I think I joined the group in July. But I was like, look, I'm not going to be open until maybe end of September. I don't want to give a presentation and then people are like, how can I refer to you? And I'm like, wait until 3 months from now. So what was great was I got to give my presentation 2 weeks before we opened. And I actually have a pretty funny story. where I was asked like, oh, someone asked like who like, we see that you really like taking care of anxiety and depression, chronic fatigue, that kind of stuff. But is there anyone else that you like really enjoy? And I was like, I have a heart for serving kids that suffered from concussions. I had 5 myself. And I know that when that brain to body communication isn't working properly, it can lead to plenty of other things. And so I really, really enjoy checking kids that have suffered from concussions. And my first patient was a kid that had just had a concussion because his mom posted on a Facebook group that someone in my networking group was in saying, hey, my son just got a concussion. What should I do? And she commented, go see Zach. And she called me Thursday. I was set to open on Monday. And there were still like rafters going up. They were putting the fans up in my office still. And I was like, I can see you, but like there's still construction going on in my office. Like I had my CO, so it wasn't like illegal in that sense. And she was like, perfect. And my first patient was exactly what I asked my ideal clientele to be. It wasn't, back pain Bob or, I love back pain Bob personally, but it was a very different case for me to see based off of very specific, tailored ideal clientele speaking. If that was not the right way to say that, but you guys get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Colton, where are you at right now with your ideal client? Who is your ideal client in this moment?
Yeah. So similar to what you said, Spence, I was that guy in school. Like if they have a spine, send them to me. Like I like going on all those mission trips. Like I love seeing kids, moms, everybody. Back pain Bob, even like Zach just mentioned. But as I'm graduated and looking more into ideal clientele, I'm starting to realize like where chiropractic like has really made an impact in my life. And we listened to an Ed Milet talk, and he said like you're best able to serve the person you used to be, right? And more so, I've been praying on it, thinking on it. It's become clear to me that, like Spence is saying, that developmental challenge that kids have is something that I really struggled with growing up, and like I'm best fit to take care of those kids because that's where my heart is. And so that's been a recent shift, like really in the last 2 weeks of people that I realized that like, hey, like you've been called to take care of these people, so take care of these people, take care of these kids. And then also like I love the family unit. So getting a whole family under care, those kids, including their parents, is like that's what I'm looking for in my practice. Total family wellness.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It was surprising for me. I was trying to guess who your clientele would be. I would have been very wrong.
Oh yeah, dude, you're gonna be a PX doc for sure. But so going into that, like leading into it, right? Your ideal clientele is the thing that you, one, like build your message around, and two, like build your office around. And excuse me, I know like in my master network group, we also do like, I just did my 10-minute presentation last week, and I got to be able to like really showcase my office, and everyone always wants to know like, okay, well, what makes you different? What sets you apart? And like, I know both for me and Zach and our experience, the insight scans and the CLA technology, like really is the thing that sets our office apart. For me, it like is the thing that like, I don't have to say anything else. I just say like, I have these nervous system scans that like tell us how much stress is in your body, and they're like, I'm in. Right? There's no convincing on chiropractic. They're like, I just want to check them out. So where do you foresee like being what's called like your unique selling point? Where do you see that happening for your office, Colt?
So that's two things. That's the Insight CLA, which I decided that I'm going to use in my practice. Thanks to both of y'all guys as a big inspiration for that. I mean, always something that I've wanted to incorporate in this message that we deliver about nervous system based care. And then two, like I have a passion for upper cervical work, and being able to clear the upper cervical is just something that I've loved, and continuing to develop my skill set in that and my analysis in that is where I really want to hang my hat.
Nice. You're going to be up in Allen, correct?
Yes, sir. Allen, Trinity Life Chiropractic in Allen, opening in March.
Nice. It's exciting. Yeah, some insight into upper cervical work in kids. I just had a 12-year-old come in yesterday, and we've been trying to like reset his vagus nerve, and dude, he was not clearing the past like 3 or 4 adjustments, and he came back, and one of our buddies just sent me a sick toggle piece in the mail, and I lit him up, and he walked out, and he said to his dad waiting in the waiting room for him, like, that was the coolest thing I've ever experienced. He's like, everything is so bright. It was so cool. And then they left. And then his dad left me a 5-star Google review, like right then and there, right? So like doing things that are different, that are unique is really so potent for people.
Yep, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to one thing, Spence, that you mentioned when you said you sit down with people. And this is, advice for Colton, and I think you do this already, but for our listeners, I mentioned early, I was like, networking for most people, they make it seem like it's hand out their business cards. And what I've learned is that's definitely not the way to do it. I've had plenty of people just come up to me, not even introduce themselves and say, hey, here's my business card. Talk to you soon. And I was like, I don't even, and sometimes their business card doesn't say what they do. I'm like, this is strange. But what Spence was talking about is getting to understand and know people on a one-to-one level, even if it's like a mixer or a happy hour, having that ability to be interested and ask thought-provoking questions. And for me, I think has been killer, just because, one, I really like to get to know people. I want to know, like, why did they get into their job, or, what are their current struggles, or what's, been the coolest thing they've seen since they've started, or in the last few months. And so I'll ask all those questions, because Justin Winstead, who we had on a few weeks ago, he mentioned to me, he's a phenomenal networker. He mentioned, the most interesting person in the room is actually the person that's most interested. And so when you're interested in other people, you can have 50, 30-second conversations, handing your business card, hey, I'm a chiropractor, give me a call when your back hurts. Or you can have 2 to 3 really good conversations with people, and when they leave, they're like, wow, that person like took the time to understand me. Like, I know them better. I understand their business better. That way, when it comes time for referrals and actually, getting your return on investment, it's because you actually were interested in people. And so just taking that time, slowing down, pausing, taking deep breaths, and getting to know people, so it might be a little more uncomfortable. You're like, you see all these people at these mixers, and you're like, I should be getting 50 business cards. It's like, no. Like, plant the seed, plant really good seeds, water those seeds as much as you can in that one networking event.
Yeah. Colt, here's a question for you, so we can kind of like wrap up our networking episode. But who were some of the people that, like, what kind of professions were you talking to in your BNI group? Like, who are some of the people that you like really spent time to get to know?
Yeah, cool. So, and real quick, just to speak to what y'all were talking about, that was like one of the things it said before going to a BNI thing was like, go to learn about other people, not to speak about your stuff. And so that's what I kind of went in there with the mentality of, anyway, like, I don't really have to speak too much about me because I'm there to learn about them. And learning about them, I met the person I talked to the most was a personal finance guy. He was super cool, super welcoming. Then I also met with a construction worker. He was just like so excited to like learn about me, but like I sat there and talked to him about what he did, and he just loves chiropractic, so that was cool. And then also a guy that helps find like different like health insurances or different packages that are beneficial to people, and he was really cool and had some really cool insight to share with me. And there were plumbers, there were real estate agents, there's just all kinds of people. It was really cool.
Yeah. And so I asked that question, like, to then set up a question for Zach, like, what are some of the people that you find yourself like gravitating toward in your networking groups? Like, when someone says like, oh, I'm this, like, this is what I do you kind of light up and say like, okay, I'm going to really try to get to know you? Or is it just like kind of whoever has the time?
A big thing with BNI is once you're in the group, you're asked to do a one-to-one with like every person in the group. So really making that a sole effort to get to know them more on that level. I don't necessarily like listen. I mean, I listen, but I don't listen for like that. I don't listen for like that entry point. Being a chiropractor, like, there's powerhouse groups. So there's like the real estate group, and they have their little circle. And then there's like the roofing and the restoration group and the HVAC. So for me, I'm really more so trying to hear what they're saying. And that way, when I go to the one-to-one, I have it in the back of my head. Like, hey, I know you mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Like, how's that been going, or like how can I help you find that person. So I'm more so trying to get things in the back of my head so that when I meet with them on a one-to-one level, I can go a little bit deeper at a quicker rate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What are like, who do you listen for? Because I'm curious.
Not really, like, because so in Master Networks we do the same thing. They're called face to face, right? Just because it's not BNI, so we don't call them one to one. But we do the same thing. I just found myself like talking to more, like in the chamber events, like I talk a lot more to family practitioners, counselors, like those kind of deals than I do like the corporate lights guy, right? Like we don't connect very much a lot on that, or like the in like my in my Master Networks group, like I really connect with Danielle is where I met I met her at Master Networks, and so like I connect really well with her. Like she teaches kids how to swim. I connect really well with our like Young Living essential oils lady. Like she's phenomenal. So I just find myself talking to those people more because it's just common interest, not necessarily saying I'm like looking for like, oh, where do I step in right here? Or like that, because I've had, I try to do one-to-ones with, face-to-faces with as many people in the group as possible.
Yeah, I shoot for one. I try to go every week, but since I've opened and got a little bit busier, it's got a little tougher. So definitely pre-opening, I was doing at least one every week. And then in the chamber of commerce, it's more so listening for, and you can judge me if you want to, but who appears or who have I seen their name consistently throughout the community that is going to know the most. Kind of thinking about it as in I can either look for the geese or look for the eggs. And if I can go find the geese that's laying the eggs to all the people in the community, that's a much better person to connect with and just follow up with. And then the other big thing too is doing a follow up. I'm sure most of us in our chiropractic practice, when we have someone come in the first time, we do a follow up with them after the first time they've been adjusted or whatever. But with a one-to-one or any meeting in the chamber and things of that nature, doing a follow up then too, like, hey, it was really great to sit down and talk with you. And it sounds crazy. It sounds like, why would I not do that? A lot of people don't. And so it's doing that extra 1% or that one thing that a lot of people don't do so that you stand out and that people are like, this is a really good dude. It's all about building trust at the end of the day. Like how much trust can you build by being you and being authentic and expressing your message, and expressing who your ideal clientele is, and then being a good person, which I hate to say it, but there's not many people that are.
What you got, Colt? Do you have something to add?
Yeah, I just have a question for both of y'all. So we've mentioned BNI and Chamber is what y'all were just talking about, correct? Chamber of Commerce. Okay. Any other groups that y'all are in, or any other ways of networking or marketing that y'all, or I guess just networking that y'all use?
Dude, my advice to people who would like are starting to network, get involved in your city chamber, which is like the general group. You can it can be all chiropractors. Like if Allen is just so happenly a chiropractic town, like the whole chamber could be just chiropractors. Get involved in there because it gets you like in front of like a lot of people. And then being in these groups that have like the isolated, like single special like profession group is also beneficial as well. Like, because you want your exposure, but you also want to be the expert at the same time, right? Like you want to be the guy in the group. That's really nice because it just isolates you a little bit more. You're not quote competing, but there are not as many voices saying the same thing.
I think some other groups that I've heard of, I haven't used. I mean, a really great way to start is just going on Facebook and searching networking groups. And if you're in Allen, searching Allen networking groups or Colleyville networking groups. And then from there, there's Toastmasters, which is similar to BNI. I think I haven't been. And just Facebook searching or Google searching. Or when you do go, I mean, BNI and Chamber are like almost guaranteed that you'll have one pretty close to you, or Master Networkers. I don't know how their reach, but from there you can then start asking people in that group, like, hey, where else are you spending your time? And if they're like, I go to happy hour at Moxie's, then it's like, interesting. Okay. Do you go to any of the networking groups? Yeah. Okay, cool. Can I go with you? and they love to take you with them. So yeah,
Yep.
and then asking them like, who should I be getting coffee with around the community outside of our group was huge for me too.
Cool.
Yeah, they're everywhere, dude. Like, I mean, everyone will invite you. I think I'm in like 11 Facebook pages or something like that, like just for networking. So then just like picking and choosing the ones that are most fruitful for you that you can pour into the most is good.
Yeah, man. Well, Colt, we thank you for taking the time out. I know you're in the process of opening up, so look forward to following you along with Trinity Life Chiropractic. And yeah, Spence, you got anything for our listeners?
No, thanks so much, Colton. Colton, why don't you just tell everybody where they can find you, how to stay updated with you, and anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. You can find me at Trinity Life Chiropractic on Instagram. My website is trinitylifechiro.com. And then my personal is Dr. O'Brien or Dr. Colton O'Brien on Instagram, and then Colton O'Brien on Facebook.
Nice, dude. Nice, dude. People go give that man a follow. We'll be back next week. We'll be dropping episodes every Monday. If you did enjoy this episode, give us a like, share us on your Instagram story or Facebook or wherever your peeps will find this. The more people we can have understanding the process of opening up, the better this profession will be. So really appreciate Colton taking the time. Spence, peace out, man.
Yep. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Whatnot podcast. We'll see you next week.